Foreign-born players in the Six Nations countries. A bit of a controversial topic every time we talk about it. It's an issue which some people think is a non-issue. Who cares who plays for as long as they're eligible? Doesn't matter if it's through residency, if it's their granny, if they grew up there, if they're born and raised there, parents, whatever. For other people, they don't like to see people switch from one country to another, seemingly for the only purposes of playing professional rugby, or being poached by other countries at a young age, that kind of thing. But anyway, ruck.co.uk has compiled a list of the foreign-born players for the 2021 Six Nations. And remember, it is only the country they are born in. Now, that can be a bit of a murky topic. I, for example, have two children, and they were born in two different countries, so it's pretty normal for people to move around for work, or you could meet someone from a different country from yourself, or there's loads of reasons you might be born in a place and grow up somewhere else. But anyway, we'll go through the countries, and just for the purposes of a brief look, we will see how the squads stack up in terms of their foreign-born percentage. For England, they've named a 28-man squad, not including their shadow squad, and it's just the one guy who wasn't born in England. It's Billy Vunipola. He was born in Australia, but from what I understand about Billy V, he did grow up and go through the England under-20 system, so it's not like he's speaking with an Aussie twang and, moved to England when he was in his 20s kind of thing. But yeah, he is their sole representative in the foreign-born stakes. For France, now theirs is a 37-man squad, which has had a few guys kind of come and go recently. Vakatawa and Antonio were named in the initial squad, but they both ended up pulling out. There would have been two guys who would have been on the foreign-born radar, with one being born, actually both being born in New Zealand. Vakatawa even was born in New Zealand, even if he's Fijian. But the other two remaining guys of that 37-man squad who are born outside of France are the two big South Africans, Bernard Leroux, even though his name sounds about as French as it can get, and Paul Willemse. So both of those guys born in South Africa. As far as I'm aware, neither of them has any kind of direct connection to France in terms of like a mother, father, grandparent, that kind of thing. But yeah, so pretty low numbers for both England and for France. For Ireland, it gets a little bit higher, but it's a bit of a mixed bag in terms of the way these guys qualified for Ireland. You've got Rob Herring. He was born in Cape Town, but his granddad is South African. You got Alton Delane. He was born in France, but he's got an Irish mum, and he still grew up in Ireland. Like, if you hear the guy speak, he sounds as Irish can be. You got Quinn Rue, who I think is just residency, South African, still sounds South African. CJ Stander, again, residency. I think he played for the South African under-20s, so you still hear him speak. I mean, he's committed a large part of his life to Ireland, 150-odd caps for Munster. So again, he's the kind of guy who some people may question, and other people will say, nah, he's given his all for the country. So yeah, that's just that kind of dividing line that people have. Jamison Gibson Park, he played for the Māori All Blacks, grew up in New Zealand, but he has been playing his rugby over in Leinster. Billy Burns, he's got an Irish grandfather, but he played for England's under-20s. Bundy Aki, I think he's one of the examples that kind of sometimes riles people up, where I think he was identified to fill a role and was recruited to Ireland for that purpose. And the other one is James Lowe, another guy who played for the Māori All Blacks. So with Ireland, it's a bit of an interesting mix of people who actually have, like grandparents or parents, and then other guys who just, lived in Ireland long enough to qualify for the team. For Italy and their 32-man squad, most of their guys who were born overseas seem to have come through the under-20s, which is kind of pleasing. You got Marco Manfredi, born in Germany, but came through the Italian under-20 side. Johan Meyer, I think, is just South African residency grounds as far as I'm aware. Negri was born in Zimbabwe, but again, Italian under-20s. Sisi is Italian qualified through his grandparents. He did play for England's under-20s, which is, when you play for one team's under-20s and the other team's national team, that's always the one that looks a little bit jarring, at least on paper. But again, it's not for me to say who is rightly or wrongly qualified for any one country or another. That's the rules, the laws. Christian Stoyan, Moldova is where he was born, but Italian under-20s. Traore, born in Guinea, but Italian under-20s. Callum Brayley, his granddad is Italian, played for England under-20s. Ignacio Brex, born in Argentina, his grandparents are Italian. Monty Ioane, born in Australia, pretty sure it's just residency for him. And Stephen Varney, his mother is Italian. I think he played for the Italian under-20s, but it's weird because he's like a full Welsh speaker. So if any Welsh guys wanted to use like Welsh line-out calls, he might be the guy to crack the code for the Italians on that part. But it seems like he chose Italy from a pretty young age, so that's always pleasing to see. Speaking of Wales, 36-man squad. Interestingly, ruck.co.uk did put Wilgriff John on their list, but I'm pretty sure he didn't get selected. Correct me if I'm wrong. Of the other guys, now again, when you look at Wales as one, there's a lot of guys born in England, but that's just the UK, isn't it? So a lot of people move around the UK for work. Kind of like the way a lot of Kiwis go to Australia. You can go there without a visa. You know, you can move around the UK freely. You find work wherever you want. You guys are even on the same passport. We're not even on the same passport. So it doesn't surprise me to see so many people born in England here. Connection to England is real. Thomas Francis, born in England, Welsh grandma. That's how he's qualified. Will Rowlands, born in London, Welsh father. Jake Ball, born in England, raised partly in Australia, where I think he's heading back to. Welsh father. Dan Lydiot, born in England, but he grew up in Wales. Played Wales under-20s. Josh McLeod, this is the first one I'm seeing of it. He's born in Monaco, which is the first that I've seen, but again, raised in Wales. Talupe Faletau, born in Tonga, but raised in Wales from a pretty young age, I think, very young age. When you hear him speak, he just sounds 100% Welsh, so that's always a kind of key indicator as well when you hear the guy's accents. Nick Tompkins, he's born in England. He's England under-20s, but with a Welsh grandmother. Jonathan Davis, born in England, but again, grew up in Wales. Wales under-20s. Johnny Williams, born in England. England under-20s. And I think he played for England once against the Barbars, didn't he? But then he's got a Welsh dad. Hallam Amos, born in England, but went to school in Wales, played age group rugby in Wales. And George North has got an English dad, a Welsh mum, but grew up in Wales. Another guy who's like a full Welsh speaker. And I would certainly not like to tell him to his face, "But you're a foreign-born guy in the squad." Because, again, he's about as Welsh as it gets. That's Wales. The last one is Scotland. And, man, a lot of people have a Scottish grandparent. That seems to be a thing. But, again, it's the England connection largely for Scotland, but a wee bit with South Africa as well. Ashman, born in Canada, but again, age group rugby in Scotland. I think he's been coming through the age groups for quite some time. Simon Bergen, I actually didn't know this, but he's a Kiwi, but with a Scottish granddad. I don't know how I didn't know that. That always slipped through. I just thought he was a Scot, like through and through. Alan Dell, South African, but with a Scottish grandmother. Played for the South African under-20s. Ollie Kebble, South African under-20s, but through on residency. WP Nell, Via Nell, South African on residency as far as I'm aware. Blade Thompson, played for the Māori All Blacks, but he's got a Scottish grandfather. Hamish Watson, also with Scottish grandparents, but qualifies through those grandparents, and he's always played age group for Scotland, I believe, which is again also encouraging. Ali Price, his mother is Scottish, and he played Scottish under-20s. Jaco van der Vault is just on residency as far as I'm aware. Played South African age group level rugby. Chris Harris through his grandmother. James Lang through his grandfather. Cameron Redpath through his famous father, but did play England under-20s. Sean Maitland is about as Kiwi as it gets, being from a town like Tokoroa. Yeah, you guys outside New Zealand probably won't understand what I mean, but yeah, just think small town, country, playing rugby. Played for the Māori All Blacks, but with Scottish grandparents. Byron McGuigan from Namibia, but with a Scottish mother. Duan van der Merwe played for South African under-20s, but qualified on residency. And lastly, Duncan Taylor, born in England, but has Scottish parents. So that's through all the guys in under 10 minutes. So you can see Scotland's got a large part of their squad which was foreign-born, likewise Wales. But as I said, it's kind of unsurprising to see so many guys from other parts of the UK being born in other parts of the UK. That should be a surprise to absolutely nobody. It's more guys like, I don't know, Shaun Maitland. If you're a Scot and you look at Stuart Hogg and Shaun Maitland, do you see one as more Scottish than the other? Like when Gareth Anscombe was playing for Wales, I mean, he's got a name like Gareth, for goodness sake, so do you see him the same as all your other Welsh players? Like I said, some people will say yes, and some people will say no. That's just the thing with rugby and that issue. It is always one that kind of divides people, but as I said, it's only where you're born. I suppose the most important thing is who you decide to play for, whose jersey you put on, and the performances that you give in that jersey. Helps if you can know how to sing the national anthem. That's probably a good start. But anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts. Obviously, the residency rules have changed, so they're 5 years from here on out. It's maybe a good time to talk about that one as well. There's maybe more than two camps, but seemingly some people who think that will help reduce the kind of mercenary style guys who just pop along for a few years, get residency, get selected for the national team, and then bugger off. There's one guy who did that recently for Scotland. And there are other people who say it'll just start people getting poached from other countries at even younger ages. But anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.